Hi, it's Grace Pamela, Summerana.com, and I'm going to show you a tutorial on how to use the ColorFall Photoshop Action Collection. This is a collection where we can do a base edit of the images as well as create a completely um, fall look from a summer or spring image, or you can even add more color to your already there fall colors. It's a lot of fun, so I'm just going to show you how to use them on several images. These images are by Lindsay Lee Photography and Shannon Squires Photography. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. I already have my action set uploaded. We do have a separate tutorial that shows you how to upload them in case you wanted to um, go see that first so you know how to install your actions to use them. Okay, so the first set I'm going to show you in Photoshop CC, and then I'm going to also show you in Photoshop Elements right here. So if you are using Photoshop Elements, you can wait till the end, more towards the end of the tutorial, and then I'll show you how to use them there. Okay, so the first thing that you normally want to do, if your image is already edited, then you can skip this step. But if it's not and you want to kind of tweak it a little bit, you can go ahead and select Clean Base and then select Play here. Here you'll see all of your layers are popping up. It's one group with clean base here, and then all of the actions inside of them. Now how this is set up is the whole group here, you can adjust the opacity so that it's not so strong, because it is a very powerful action and it will be very strong if your image isn't, um, if it's already edited, then you don't need it to be strong at all. But if it's not edited at all, then maybe you want it stronger. Totally up to you. But that's how you can do that. Again, this eye turns off the action and this eye turns it on. Here you'll see that there is a white layer mask, and you can grab a brush and a black paintbrush and make sure it's a nice soft one. And then if you want to, you can brush the effect off in certain areas of your image if needed. Now that's for the whole group. If you only want certain effects, you can go ahead and see what they do here and play with them to see which one you might not want at all, or maybe you just want to brush it off certain areas, or maybe you want to adjust the opacity of it so it's either stronger or not as strong. So that's how all of these actions are set up. I will continue to show you how more of them are too as well. So we have sharpening here. The sharpening, now another thing you can do is you can either brush it off where you don't want it, or you can also do Control I, and that will invert that layer. So black conceals and white reveals the effect of that layer. So now I have it black, so it's not anywhere. So now I'm going to use a white paintbrush to reveal it on only the areas that I want it to show, such as eyes, lips, stuff like that. Okay, so that's also another way that you can edit some of these. And again, you can just go through and play with them and see what effect you like. I'm just showing you a quick run through. This will not be perfect by any means. Okay, so now we can go into our fall edit. Now to make things easier, you could either leave this open to save it for later, or else you can right click and, I'm sorry, you can also merge visible or flatten image. And then that way, just so layers don't get mixed up later on. Totally up to you. So here we have our fall edit. These are different colored, different effects and colors for different fall tones and colors and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun to play with. And then these are the same ones except they are brush on. What that means is they won't show to your whole image. It'll show just where you want to brush them on. And I can show you that actually really quick. Let's do October foliage. So you see it's black. So now we can use our white paintbrush and you can paint it on. So that's just a quick example of how the brush-ons work. They might come in handy, or you might want to use the entire, the original not brush-on. So how this works is this will pop up for you, and you're going to want to select the dropper plus tool here, and it's going to have you select the areas of your image that you want to change. Now it mostly changes the yellows and the greens and the oranges, things like that. So you want to select obviously the areas you don't want to be green and that you want to change to your fall colors. Now if it's showing on your face, you can select the negative dropper tool here and you can go ahead and deselect it again. Totally up to you, but the more you do it, it'll come off your background as well. So some images it works like flawlessly, you don't even need to play around with it, and some of it you might need to go ahead and brush it back on or off or whatever you prefer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press OK, and you can see it started applying it, but because I deselected it from her face so much, it's going to, you're going to have to go ahead and brush it on. And I'll show you more image examples so you can see how it works more too. So I'm using a white paintbrush and I'm just kind of painting it back onto the areas that I want. And I have my brush at 100% opacity. So this part, when you're getting close to the skin, it can be a little tricky, and I'm going to show you a trick on how to do that. You want to make sure you kind of overlap the hair a little bit because you don't want green showing around the hair. And don't worry if you get it on your subject, you can always brush it off when you're done. Now, one way you can see if you got all the areas to make sure you don't miss any spots, you can hit the backslash key on your keyboard and it'll turn red on the areas that you did not get. So you can see right here, there's a little red. That means I didn't get that area yet. So now I can kind of work my way around. Then you can select it again and then it'll show you. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my black paintbrush here and I'm going to wipe it off the areas I don't want it. Okay, so you can adjust the opacity if it's too strong, if you just want it nice and light, totally up to you. Another thing you can do is you can play multiple ones to add more like different colors and more effects and more strength. And you can also play the same one again if you want even more powerful than what it is. Now I'm going to show you a trick for if you are worried about getting too close to the skin and you don't want to sit there and brush it on as much, so you don't have to be super tedious. One thing that you can do is you can go ahead and select this tool here. It's a quick selection tool. And if you right click, in case the magic wand is showing, you can right click here and then it'll pop up the little menu. So here you're going to want to make sure you have your background selected and the plus dropper. Now I'm going to select my subject. You can either just do the tricky spots like here on her face, or if you want to, you can do pretty much all of them. Now again, I'm not worried about the edges of the hair because I don't mind if that will be affected by the color because I kind of want it to affect it just so it's not a yellow halo around her head. And this does not have to be permanent. You can come back and uh, brush it on or off as needed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit to make sure I really got the areas that I don't want affected. Okay, that's pretty good. So now I have my selection here. I'm going to, you could either select and mask, which is right here, select and mask, or since we're not going to be super tedious on it, I'm just going to right click and select layer via copy. And then there you'll see that we have this layer. Now, in order for this to work, I'm going to go ahead and do a brush on, let's do Autumn Fire. And I'm going to show you how this works. You're going to want to have this layer that we cut out on top. So that way, when you brush on the effect, it's underneath her face. So I'll show you how that works. And you can go ahead and just brush it on all over wherever you want. And then there, you'll see it did not affect her face because her face is above the layer. So that's one simple way to do it. Now I'm going to show you, this also is really nice too for things like this. There's like a white spot right here that I kind of want to fix up. So another thing you can do too is you can either grab a brush and then select a similar color. And I'm going to duplicate my background layer just in case I mess up, and then I can mask it off and I have my original layer just in case. Actually, I'm going to lower the opacity here so it's not so strong. And you can kind of go in and fix it that way. And what I'm doing is I'm selecting the Alt key on my keyboard, and then that brings up the color dropper tool, and you can see it's changing the color. Otherwise, you can select that and then select around too. And then I'm just kind of painting it on. Okay, so that's one way that you could do it. Otherwise, another way you can do it is, let's go back in my history here, is you can go up to Filter, Liquify, and then here you can kind of drag it over. Now I know it looks really funny, but I'm focusing on the background here. And you can adjust your settings here so it doesn't even show the preview here like this as well. I'm going to select OK, and now you can see that brought it back as well. You don't want to see what it looks like if I take that away. Okay, so anyways, that's another way that you can do it. And then you can even combine them. Like I still don't really like that it's yellow, so you can either add more color or you can play more of the actions. Totally up to you. Okay, so that's just a rough draft of how that works, the actions here. So I'm going to go ahead and continue showing you how these work. Okay, so now we have our final image editors. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more color maybe. It's fun to combine them. And again, I'm going to bring that underneath where we selected. This is probably going to be really strong. So I lowered the opacity. And you can adjust the settings however you like. Okay, now I'm going to go up to clean base again. Press play. I'm going to bring it above all of my layers here. And I'm going to bring it all the way down just because I think I want her face a little bit more stronger. So I'm going to do Control I to invert that, and I'm just going to paint it on her face. And I'm just kind of tweaking it. Kind of fun to play with all the different colors and all the different things you can do. Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to go on and keep showing you. I'm going to actually, I'm going to go ahead and flatten so I don't get my layers mixed up here. And I'm going to go ahead and play Lush. Lush is really pretty for the background and for the face too. It works on all but you might not like it so much on the face, so you can always brush it off. And you can play these actions many times if you want, totally up to you. If you want it stronger. This is a really bright image. Then it looks really pretty in the background there like that. Okay, you can also play the No More Dull, and this kind of brightens it up more. And I kind of skipped the color casting mover. I forgot to show you that, so I'm going to go ahead and press play. What this does is it's helpful for if you have color cast. So like she has a lot of yellow and some green. So what you'll want to do is select an area um, of her skin, and you can go back and change it as well, and then you can kind of paint over those areas. Now you might need to use it um, multiple times to get the color correct, and you can also adjust the opacity if it's way too strong. So let's say this area is a completely different color than over here. You can play the action again to make sure you get those areas. Okay, so I'm going to play it again, and this time I'm going to get the her dress looks a little more like purple white than I like. So we'll go ahead and play it on there. It's really helpful for all the different areas that might be discolored. I'm going to play it again, and we'll work on her skin a little bit more. Whoops. We'll lower the opacity. Okay, and I think that looks pretty good for the most part. Okay, so you can also paint on color if you want even more color. Our image is very colorful right now. I don't think we need any more, but just to show you, paint on depth. And then these actions are really fun too. These kind of add more color, toning, all of that stuff to your image. So this is obviously a little strong just because our image is already so edited. But even if you play it at a very low opacity, it's kind of nice how it pulls the image together. So there's apple pie, autumn muse, maple kiss, dawn's reveal, frolic, and then you have matte if you want to also. And you can also brush it off of your subject if you want to. And then you have haze, and you also have vignetting. Okay, and then you also have a ColorFall flare, which is a lot of fun. What you can do is you can select the arrow here so you can move it around, and you can move it pretty much anywhere you want. You can also edit, so you can resize and rotate it if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and press play. And then you can see here you can drag it bigger or smaller. If you hold down the shift key on your keyboard, you can also adjust it that way. And then you can also use the link up here. You can also change the perspective. Golden hour is a nice, it adds kind of more of a dramatic look to it. You can also change the flare color. And add more color. And then also you have your tools down here. You can make a new snapshot, add new layer mask, zoom in, zoom out, all of that fun stuff, sharpening. So that's how the ColorFall Action Collection works. And this is just a quick edit that I did. It's not perfect, but here is our before and after. Before and after. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you really quick a couple other images just so you can see how the other fall edits work, how they look and stuff. It's kind of neat to see. So here we have our September Equinox. I'm going to go ahead and press play. Select my dropper tool. I like to also go over it a couple more times just so you can kind of see a little more how it works. So there's one example. I just love this effect on this image. So a lot of them are just like kind of really quick, but you can you want to make sure you look around, and sometimes you might see it might look fine the way it is, but you might want to make sure that it's run over in all the areas, just to make sure. See, like right here. So I kind of like to give it a brush over really quick. Okay, so here is our before and after for that. And then this one I'm going to use, I'll show you how a couple of them work. You can see here mostly it's all selected. You can go ahead and just brush on the rest later if you want. I'm going to show you another trick too for when you're doing it uh, multiple effects. So I'm going to go ahead and play another one. This one. I'm just going to press OK. I'm not even going to worry about this. I'm going to show you how you can do that. Okay, so you see how this one we already brushed it on and off and it looked just fine. You can hold the Alt key on your keyboard and you can drag it up to that layer mask and select Replace Layer Mask. Yes. And then that's a neat way how you can have the same layer mask on multiple so that you don't have to do it over again. Okay, so here's our before and after. Again, you can adjust all the opacities how you like, if it's too strong or anything like that. And also you want to make sure that it's not brushed on your subject, so you can use a black layer mask and just double check. Make sure it's not on their eyes or anything like that, or in their hair. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let me see. I'll show you on this one really quick. I actually had them here already, so I'm just gonna show you so I don't have to take up too much time. So I had the Marigold Glitter and here, and this is a nice way. I wanted to show you how beautiful they can be when you combine them. So they look nice on their own, especially when you increase the opacity or if you play them multiple times. But they also look really cool when you add them together. So I wanted to show you that. Okay, so that is the tutorial on how to use the actions in Photoshop CC. Now I'm going to show you really quick in Photoshop Elements, just to kind of show you how they work in here in case you are editing in Photoshop Elements. It's pretty much the same exact thing, so I'm going to just show you quickly. So one of the differences in Photoshop Elements is it doesn't have the groups. So I have it set up to where it's each layer. So this will be the same thing though. Once you have your action played, you'll see the different layers that you can select and edit each one. You can turn off the eye and you can adjust the opacity. And now you can see I erased it everywhere except for her face. Okay, so that's how these actions work and how you use your brush tools. I'm going to go ahead and flatten. And I'm going to go ahead and play one. I'm going to do October. Select your dropper tool here. Select all the areas you want it to affect. Press continue and you can brush it off. And you can either leave it like that or you can brush it on the rest of the area as well. And you can mix and match. Here is your quick selection tool. So you can do that way as well. You can right click layer via copy and you can do the same exact thing. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it underneath here and then that way it kind of makes it a little easier to brush it on. So that's how you do that. In Photoshop Elements. Okay, and again, you can adjust the opacity and also mix and match. And you also have your brush on ones here. Again, you want to make sure you drag it underneath. There you go, and you can go in and fine tune how you like and adjust the opacity. Okay, so that's how that works. All of these actions all work the same as well. Okay, and I'm going to do Lush. No More Dull. I'm going to do Paint on Color. Now the paint on color is also nice for if you have like a tree with a bunch of different um, colors on it. If it's not showing up, it might be because your colors are backwards. So make sure you have a white paintbrush when working on there. Okay, so um, the brush on color, the reason why it's brush on is because sometimes you might have a tree with multiple color leaves on it and maybe you want one color to pop more than the other or anything like that. And you can also adjust the opacity of your brush if you want it a different, like not so strong on a certain area, or if you can play it again for different areas like the skin or anything like that. Okay, paint on depth. Okay, then we have apple pie or autumn muse, maple kiss, whichever you prefer. Continue. Now, because these are not in a group, you'll have to go in and lower the opacity of each individual one if you'd like, or turn it off if you don't like the effect. Okay, actually, I'm gonna go do the color casting mover really quick. Just on this area really quick. Just to kind of fix her hair a little bit. Like I said, the color cast actions are great for all kinds of things that you might not even think about, and hair is one of those things that can kind of get lost without the colors. You can also go in and work on your background more too if you want to. Then you have the other actions here, and then you also have your flare. You can select your flare there, and then you can go to resize rotate, press continue, and then you can move it around. And then in Photoshop Elements, you have your check mark here. There you go, and then you can also go ahead and play with these as well. All right, so that's how you use them in Photoshop Elements, and then you have your tools here as well. Uh, if you have any questions on how this action set works at all, please feel free to message me at any time at support@samarana.com. I'm going to show you, so that's our after, and then before, before, after, before, after. And I'm actually going to go back into here and look at our one that we did in Photoshop. So you can see when you play with them, you can get a range of effects. So before and after. And it's really fun to see what you can come up with. So hopefully you guys will show them to us in the group. Your fall edits, I love seeing them. It's one of my favorite parts of fall is seeing you guys' edits and how you play with um, these actions. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll enjoy the action collection. All right, bye guys.